Hi, this is Tamara Kelly from mooglyblog.com, and I'm back with another edition of Yarn Love, where I tell you all about one of my favorite Yarnspirations yarns. Today, I'm talking about Patons Hempster, which is a really unique yarn. It's got a great blend of hemp and cotton, wonderful feel and stitch definition, and we're going to be taking a closer look today at the label and how it works up. This yarn comes in 18 gorgeous colorways. The entire rainbow, some dark greens, light greens, as you can see here. There's another dark blue, lots of great neutrals, a bright orange, some yellows. It really is a true rainbow. So if you love having the full spectrum of colors to work with, Hempster is a great choice. First, let's take a look at the label. Patons Hempster comes in 3.5 ounce or 100 gram balls. Well, I should say skeins. As you can see, it's a wound skein here. Each of these has 190 yards or 179 meters. And here you can see it is 55% hemp and 45% cotton. So this yarn, I wouldn't call it hard, but it isn't squishy in terms of the individual strand. It definitely has sort of that almost linen-y, I guess, hemp and cotton feel. Really, is the best way to describe it. If you've felt any of the regular 100% cotton yarns before, you've kind of got an idea of what I mean. But this has even more of a natural feel. You can see it is very, very matte. There's no shine to it at all. And you can kind of see how it is pretty tightly wound there in the plies. If I bring it a little bit closer here, you can see the individual plies there wound together. It is wound pretty darn tightly, but of course it can unwind. And for this one, I have pulled it from the center, but I really like pulling this one from the outside. It's up to you, but I find I get fewer tangles when I pull from the outside. And here from the end too, you can see it's got a great hand feel, but it isn't what I would generally consider a squishy yarn. It just stays a lot more solid and doesn't blend into the other strands around it. That said, that's what gives it the amazing stitch definition. And of course, the hemp and cotton blend is perfectly cool for use in the summer. This is a great one to make accessories with. You can see there is a tote bag pattern here on the label. And if we open up the label, we've got a little bit more information here. So let's go ahead and tear that open. Before we look at the inside, though, I do want to point out there are dye lots for this yarn, and that it is a 3 lightweight yarn. So they recommend a 4mm set of knitting needles and 4mm crochet hook. Now, if we look inside, that's where we're going to find a little bit more information on the care for this yarn. It is a hand wash, lay flat to dry yarn. So you want to wash gently by hand in water, not exceeding 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees Celsius. So that would be sort of just a warm but not quite hot water. Don't bleach it. Go ahead, squeeze out the excess water, and then lay it flat to dry. Don't iron it and don't dry clean it. So it takes a little bit more care maybe than an acrylic, but like I said, it's got that amazing stitch definition. Okay, so here I have a crochet swatch that I've worked up in Patons Hempster in that really beautiful limey green. And for this one, I've used a 4.5mm hook. When we were looking at the labels on the skeins, you'll notice it said a 4mm hook, and on the website for Yarnspirations, they recommend a 4.5. That said, of course, you can use whatever hook size gives you the fabric you like, just like any other yarn. You can use a great big hook and make a beautiful blown out lace, use a tiny hook to make something nice, like a cozy where you want the stitches to be real small. It really just depends on your project. So you can see with the 4.5 here, I've got some great drape in this yarn, and it is lovely. It has a great feel. I might do like a little topper or something in terms of garments, but I think primarily this yarn is best used for home decor and accessories. I didn't have any trouble with it splitting or frogging. It is pretty tightly wound, but that said, of course, if it starts unwinding and unplying for you, you could end up splitting the yarn, but it's not something I really encountered with this yarn at all. It slides beautifully on the hook and needles, and I'll show you here the needles here in just a moment. And of course, since it doesn't have any real fuzz to it, it also frogs beautifully. So any mistakes you make, you can pull them right back out and just go again without worrying about that. I didn't come across any thin, lumpy, or tied bits, and I don't think this one will fuzz up too much with use. I haven't used it for a long time already. I've just used it for the first time this last month. But yeah, it doesn't feel like it would have any fuzzing at all with this hemp and cotton blend. I really think as long as you follow the care instructions, you're going to have a really good time with this yarn. Okay, and here's a small knit swatch that I have made. It's just garter stitch, and this is using the recommended needle size on both the site and the yarn label of 4 millimeters. And you can see here again, it doesn't have a lot of squish per se, but it does have really, really beautiful stitch definition. You're going to see every one of those loops. So that means you're probably going to want to block your finished project unless you're a better knitter than I am and always have that perfect gauge coming right off your needles. It does, again, just slide really, really beautifully. I think if you had a really, really sharp pair of needles, maybe you could split the yarn, but it's certainly not something I ran into. You can see here it glides beautifully. And of course, just like with the crochet swatch, will come undone beautifully if you need to do that as well. I do find it just a hair more difficult to knit with than to crochet with, simply because the yarn itself doesn't have that stretch. If we take a look here, set this down and pull up a little bit more. And if we take a look here at the individual strand, you can see there's not any stretch inside that strand at all. So if you find that knitting with yarns without stretch is a little bit more difficult, you may prefer crocheting with it. But if you normally knit with cotton or other hemp yarns, I think you'll enjoy knitting with it as well. And again, you're still going to get that really, really gorgeous stitch definition. So as we take one last look here at the Patons Hempster on the skein, you can see again, just how defined each one of those strands are and how well that's going to translate into your project. Now, I did say it isn't thin or lumpy, but there is just a little bit of slubbiness inside the yarn itself, and that is normal and to be expected. With these natural yarns and these natural blends, it's sort of like when you buy clothes and it says it has a natural dye. You're going to get a little of natural variation in there, but I think that makes this yarn just that much more beautiful. So this is the Rainbow Bobble Bag, which is a free pattern I've designed that's available on mooglyblog.com and features several colors you can see here of Patons Hempster. I went with the darker green and the darker blue for this bag, as well as the more coral orange, but there are more solid oranges, and of course that bright green we saw our swatches in, and the pretty aqua blue here. So you can definitely create all sorts of different rainbows with this, as well as beautiful neutrals. You can also see that gorgeous stitch definition I was talking about here, especially in the lighter colors here on camera. You can really see in the bobbles here how beautifully they pop out and almost become squishy once you get enough texture in there. And I think this is just going to make a really beautiful, handy, everyday size tote bag. But I've included instructions in the pattern, so you can go ahead and make it as tall as you'd like. So that's been a closer look at Patons Hempster. I hope you'll give this yarn a try, as well as all the really gorgeous patterns for it. There are a bunch of knit and crochet tote bag patterns available on yarnspirations.com, as well as the free pattern on mooglyblog.com. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day, and don't forget to like and subscribe.